Hi, guys. Welcome to yet another interview that we have for Tickle.live. And we have somebody really special. Her name is Angela Kurtz, who has been helping me with my pronunciation because, as you know, that I've got an Indian pronunciation. And we're going to be talking about something which we, strangely enough, which we still haven't dabbed on, which is about women and the special groups and what are the different problems that women go through. Hi, Angela, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good as well. So I'll tell you how it goes is that this is your platform, so you can talk about it, and then in between I might keep on asking questions because I'm pretty inquisitive for things. So if I end up asking something, some question which you might think is very trivial, just bear with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
uh, go ahead.
Yeah, so why don't you tell me about, your journey and the different organizations that you've been working with?
Okay. My journey has been varied from my own personal experience. I have been a part of several different women's support groups. I've helped start them, helped support them, and I've sat in on women. A lot of them range from different topics, but they're focused on women that are abused and hurting and recovering and doing their own healing work. Some of them are based more in spiritual groupings, not necessarily Christian though. Some of them have very pagan roots where we meditate, we embody different characteristics of strong female characters like goddesses and gods. Um, and then some of them are where we just sit and chat and we share our stories. And so all of these different things promote healings across different groups and different types of healing. Being able to sit in with a group of women in a space that's safe where you can just meditate and sort of feel all your feelings, and then you're not shamed for things like crying or being emotional is super empowering. You can get in touch with like the divine feminine inside of each of you, and you have the opportunity to share that with your sisters. That is very powerful healing, and it's something we don't have a lot of in American culture. It's something
Mhm.
that we really lack. We try to silence women's spirituality, women encountering the divine feminine, and I find those groups really healing. Being able to do that with my sisters is very healing.
Yeah, so can you just name few groups, because I'm pretty sure a lot of women who will be watching our show might have queries, or they would love to join few of those groups.
Yep, there are different red tent groups. So I travel a lot. So I sit in on some of these groups and help support them across from coast to coast in the United States.
Oh, that's
So
good.
there's a women's red tent group in Michigan, which is super empowering and has a lot of women that I know. They are also doing now a red tent group at Pagan Pathways Temple in Michigan. So that's rooted in pagan ideology. And so
Oh,
that is also very empowering here. There are also different groups on Meetup. I have started various groups here in Michigan to help facilitate healing. One of them is Michigan Women in Leather, and that's so that women can come together on the basis of their sexuality. And we regularly meet and we discuss issues, including deeply personal issues and healing from past relationships. So it's something that we regularly discuss. And I have helped support women from Michigan Women in Leather that are recovering from abusive relationships. Like, we help each other. I support them. They message me anytime. Um, and we just sort of support each other. The hardest thing for women, I think, is to find a sense of support. So that's what I try to provide in the groups that I run or that I'm a part of.
and how do you become members of these groups?
You just show up to the meetings and join. There's not really a vetting process. If there is someone that is problematic, we just discourage them from going. And usually if someone isn't a good fit for the group,
Yeah, that
they
was my next
usually don't
question.
come back. Yeah, if
Yeah.
someone's not a good fit, they just don't come back. They realize really quickly that this isn't a good fit, and most just don't come back. So if there is someone, there was one person in the history of ever in the last 4 years that really was not a good fit, and was still in the midst of addiction. And so we stopped inviting her until she got her things together. And then if she got it together, she started treating her addiction, we would allow her back. That hasn't happened yet, but that was her choice.
Yeah, so it's usually like, somebody who has some problem and they're going through it. They found the maybe the medical or the professional support. And once that is taken care of, what is the next support? Which sometimes, it becomes very difficult for society to give you, your family to give you. That's where you come into play and your groups come
Yes.
into play. Yeah, so
Yes.
so it's about opening of a communication channel. Like personally, what I've seen is like being a woman, whenever I'm stuck in a problem, and I am a big advocate of therapy, that we all should take therapy, even if we think that we do not have anything major going, because every day we people face so many challenges, especially being a woman, which honestly, it took me more than 30 years to realize. For a very long time, I was under the impression that, so what if I'm a woman? We all are equal and everybody treats you equally. Maybe we people are not trying to, push ourselves in the right direction. But then you just start realizing that it's just not us. It's actually even people. It's the society. And then you really,
Yes,
really do need a support. And
you
sometimes you
do.
can't even, yeah, and sometimes you can't even talk to your friends about it, because after a while they'll also be like, why are you harping on the same fact? And I think that's why communities are important, that's why groups are important. And I think that's
Yes.
what you're doing.
And
So
it's
yeah.
the people, especially women, are really discouraged from dwelling on like a negative, right? Like, oh, that was an issue and you should just get over it. But our
Yeah.
brains don't work that way. There are reminders every day, sometimes of a negative experience we've had, of trauma we've experienced. And being able to talk about it is what helps rewire the brain for positivity and future positive thought. To simply just ignore it or pretend like it didn't happen isn't really helpful from a cognitive perspective. It doesn't work.
Yeah. So how did you end up being a moderator for many of these groups, like, because it
Um,
is time consuming?
yes,
Yeah.
there is a degree of a time commitment, but I have to have some really good boundaries, right? Like
Yeah.
if it's time for me to sleep and someone wants to message me, I have to say, "Hey, I'm going to bed now. I travel for work, so I'm across different time zones." And sometimes that means I'm up really late. So if someone's up really late, it really works. And then I have to say I can do this another time. I ended up a moderator just simply because of my availability and time. Like it is so different. It's not 9 to 5. It's usually I'm available after those hours anyway, like
Yeah.
really early in the morning sometimes and really late at night. And I knew that people would need support, and I saw a need in my community, and I said there has to be a way to fix this, to support the women that I believe in, and help contribute some good and help people heal. That's really what I want to do, help people heal on their own journey, and I can share with them my stories. And that's what I wanted to do. I saw a need, filled it, and I'm using all of my skills to sort of help that happen as best as I can.
And how does it help you? What I mean is, and I mean, like, um, so when I talk to people, and thanks to Tickle.life, now I get to talk to so many people, and somehow it impacts you, you know?
It does.
Yeah.
it I realize that my story isn't unique. In American culture, there's this idea that we are unique and our stories are so unique, right? What that creates is it sort of makes us an other, that no one could possibly know what I'm going through or have experienced pain similar to mine. And the more I share my stories, the more I realize there are some universal themes. And that is so comforting to know that there are people who've gone through what I've gone through, and people who have healed, for years and decades, and are able to have healthy relationships and this sort of healthy, positive outlook on life. And in the telling of the story too, it changes over time. Like when I tell stories of my past trauma, it goes from being something like really angry and really raw, where I have this emotional distance and I can look at it and say, this awful thing has happened. I went through this period of recovery, and here I am today standing in my truth with strength and grace and courage. And I'm no longer afraid. I'm no longer angry. Like, I have healed that part. And that comes from me telling my story.
That's amazing. Um, so what is actually the difference? So if I have to, give you a term, I might say you're like a counselor for a lot of people. So what usually is the difference between a therapist and a counselor? Because a lot of people ask this question.
So depending on the therapist, they have different types of degrees. So I do have a bachelor's degree, so I could legitimately work as a counselor. I've had some of the classes necessary for that. I don't. I volunteer my time. A therapist, at least here in the United States, is someone who may have multiple degrees, like a PhD or a master's degree, and they have different classes and different resources, a slightly different skill set to rewire a brain. But it's not anything, those classes, those books, everything's all available for people to learn how to do themselves. And so the treatments necessary now, like EMDR is one, people are finding resources to heal themselves without having to necessarily pay for a therapist. In the United States, a therapist is super expensive and
Yeah.
out of the price range of a lot of people. And so group therapy settings, things that are free, help give people some of those tools that they would get in therapy. So a counselor would be lower on the pay scale. Like, a lot of times when you go to free mental health clinics here, they're counselors. They are students. They're people like me with a degree. They're usually people pursuing either a master's or a doctorate, and those would be your counselors, and they would be overseen by therapists with a higher degree or who've been doing that work a long time. And so that's the difference. A counselor is a lower level person, less paid, usually free, and a therapist is higher paid up on the scale, depending on how long they've been doing it.
And when you're running a group, when you're running a meetup, there are going to be like what is the number size? Is it like 5 people at one time, 10 people at one time? So do you have like a number set?
I don't have a number set. It fluctuates. Sometimes there are one or two people that will come, depending on the time of year and if it's close to a holiday. And then sometimes there are 10 to 15 people that will show, depending, again, on what day of the week we're meeting, on what other people have going on. And it fluctuates. There is a core group of people who try to regularly come, but
Yeah.
it's not always consistent. We all have lives, especially women. We are still the caretakers of our families and
Yeah.
children, so we have these other obligations, and prioritizing like our own self-care, our own mental health, our own ability to connect with other women is very often low on that priority list. So I understand that. My feelings are never hurt when people can't come. I usually message them and say, hey, we didn't see you this week, or we didn't see you in the last couple. Are you doing okay? And that kind of stuff, to regularly check in with people. And if I can, try to schedule time to meet with them outside of the group. Like, not necessarily doing anything for their mental health, but just in terms of socializing. Like, do you want to meet for coffee? Do you want to come over? Do you want to catch a movie? Do you want
Mhm.
to do something, to make sure that people feel they are connected?
Yeah, true. So, but what my question, the reason why I was asking this question was that when you're in a group, everybody has their own opinion. And, sometimes it becomes a very opinionated group, like, you're being a part of one. And it just makes you uncomfortable. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I was a part of, like, a group. And I think I was like one of those initial founders or moderators or whatever you call it. And the reason why I couldn't, stop relating with it was because when new people started coming on board, they started coming with preconceived notions.
Mhm.
And it just like stifles your freedom. And, then you do not know what is right and what is wrong. And then it just confuses you. So how do you manage that? Because I think a lot of women are creating a lot of groups around because they really want to help, and this might help them to maintain the fluidity that is needed?
I try to start off with a reading or a writing of why the group started and what our goals are, to get people on the same page from the start of the meeting. Here's our goals. Here's what we wanted to do with this group. And then I might even add, here's what we're going to work on today. If there's something specific I want to talk about, I will post it in like the group chat and say, here's our topic. This is what we're going to discuss. And so that way it's not necessarily up for the group to decide, like, we're going to talk about these specific things today and we'll work on this specific skill set. That's how I do it. So, because if there are a lot of people that show up, you have chaos.
Yeah.
And it's not really helpful to have that. So I try to set the tone right from the start as early as I can, especially if I know there's a specific topic I think that needs to be addressed in the group.
Yeah, and I think the same modus operandi might work on online communities as well, where a lot of people are coming together to discuss, to heal each other and to heal themselves, to set the tone right from day one of what is happening. So I think even though when we talk about that, we need a lot of freedom, we need to be fluid, but still we somehow still need a direction, and we still need, how should we go ahead, how should we work. So it's actually it's interesting, how there are like two kinds of discussions that are happening, and they both match with each other. So yeah, so I find it really fascinating. I find they are amazing. They go through a lot in their lives. So how many groups are you like handling as of now?
Right now I'm involved in 3. So there are 3, and that's it.
And how many people approximately you would be touching through those 3 groups?
It varies. Maybe
Approximately.
between the 3, between 30 and 50.
Wow.
It depends. Like I said, on who shows up, who's engaged in the groups, who's doing the messaging.
But then, yeah, but then even if they do not show up, you're still there for them. They can call you or
Yes.
message you or maybe email you if that
Yeah,
works. Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah.
I take
So
messages anytime.
so if I'm pretty sure that at least somebody who was who will be seeing this video might have some question or would need some assurance or healing, and might be wondering that, am I the right candidate? So who so who would message you, if I may ask?
So in a perfect world, like someone who needs support, or maybe I've also had people offer me support because they see what I do. So someone who needs support or who might offer support. And it also has to be someone willing to do their own work. And what I mean by that is they have to be open, right, to not just sharing their experience, but open to maybe talking about and learning some different techniques on how to handle their stress, on how to help with their trauma. You have to be open to those things for this process to work. Like people message me that they can't sleep, so I will send them a sleep meditation that has worked for me, or a breathing technique, right? And so I will try to help them as best I can, but none of that is helpful if you're not open to it.
Yeah, true. That's true.
I believe that you have to be willing to follow that up. If you want to improve the situation, sometimes you have to be willing to do a degree of work. So like if you're telling me you can't sleep and I say, hey, I have a breathing meditation, you want to try it? You say yes, and I send it to you. I actually expect you to try it.
Yeah. And I think it's also very difficult actually just to accept and just to start doing something.
Yeah.
So if you're ready to change, I think half of the journey is already won. So how would people contact you if they have to?
Email is good. There's Facebook Messenger. With Facebook now, the Messenger is so big, I do get messages. Email is good. Send me an email and we can talk that way.
And your email ID would be?
It is tagalina21@yahoo.com, and I will spell it because
Yeah.
It is TAGALINA21 at yahoo.com.
Great. Thank you so much. And we will also put it in the description. And I would love to see you again. And we can do another interview or another talk about a different facet of you, because apparently you're doing a lot of things. And this is just
Yeah.
like, like a small part into your, your elaborate horizon.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you
Yeah.
so
I would
much.
love it.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for
you so
having
much.
me.
Thank you. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.